Good afternoon, everybody. Arun Mehra here, and I hope you're well. Just as we start up here, people are joining the webinar this afternoon at 12:30. Firstly, I hope everybody is safe and well. It's been I'm sure, a very trying and testing week for many, actually for almost everybody I know, including myself. My team have stepped up. It's been tough on them. I know many of my clients have found it very tough, and now we also learned today that our beloved Prime Minister has been contracted with coronavirus as well. So we shall see. I'm just making sure everything's working technology-wise. Hopefully it is. Just bear with me a second. All right, fantastic. All right, so all good. So today I'm going to be talking about 7 business actions that every dental practice must now do in this downtime, okay? And the first section will be predominantly about what's been happening in the news flow in the last week, but then some other actions that need to be taken by yourself. Now, I've got a picture here of a crashing wave or a tsunami, I guess, and I guess that's how many people are feeling at the moment, with a tsunami of barrage of issues and problems and emotional problems and physical problems and financial problems all hitting you at the same time. Which is unprecedented, really, in my kind of career as well, and in helping a sector. Now, so I know there's a tsunami that's hit you. Okay, I guess now we have to deal with this tsunami and wade way through it, and to hopefully come through it stronger and better in the end, because you will. Okay, so this webinar is all about many of the issues that have been thrown at you by the government this week, okay, for the financial issues, how to deal with them, and maybe what you can do and what you can't do. And then also some other actions that I think that may be important to consider during your downtime. So let's crack on. I will move these slides if they work. Right, so today's webinar, firstly, to take stock of everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? That's the first thing. So I need to do. So the second thing is, I'm just trying to work out all this technology. Sometimes I'm not very good at it, so bear with me a second, okay? The second is to, once you've taken stock of all the good, the bad, and the ugly that's out there, and there may be a glimmer of good out there. I know you might be thinking, well, there is no good. Maybe a little bit. I guess how you perceive things. Number 2 is streamlining your business, okay? Number 3 is looking how to look after your existing patients as much as possible during this downtime, and how. Exhausting all financial avenues and making sure you get all the money possible that you can during this time. Leadership, stoic leadership, keeping the marketing engine alive and making your marketing brilliant. All of these things linked together. So let me crack on. For those of you that don't know me, and I know we've got a lot of people on this webinar tonight or today that are probably new to me. I'm the owner and CEO of Samera Business Advisors. I'm also, I have another hat on. I also own a small dental group called the Neem Tree Dental Group down in London, called the Neem Tree. It's based in London and Surrey. And just bear with me a second, making sure everything's switched off. I've been working with dentists for the last 17 years. I have a range of clients from associates to practice owners to corporates. A trained chartered accountant with PwC, which seems like an eon ago, ex-president of Vice President of Bank of America. So I've got a lot of experience financially, but also in the dental domain, because I own the Neem Tree with my wife, Smita, who's a clinician who qualified in '97 at the University of Birmingham, and she's been running the Neem Tree since 2003, okay? So a lot of the information and knowledge I'm going to impart will be related to what we've experienced as owners of private practices over the next 45 minutes to an hour. But at the same time, it will also draw on experience in talking to clients. And I've spoken to many clients this week. I know my team has spoken to even more clients than I have this week, and hearing concerns and worries. So that's who I am. Who is Samera? If you're not sure, we're a firm of chartered accountants. So we're accountants dealing with tax issues, HMRC, accountancy preparation, all that type of stuff. We're commercial finance brokers. So if you're looking to raise finance, short-term, long-term, acquisition finance, asset finance, you name it, we do it. And we're also a firm of brokers, okay? Dedicated to dentistry, and we deal with hundreds of clients across the UK and beyond each year. So let's crack on. So let's take stock: the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I suppose I've kind of in this section termed things that can be perceived to be good, things that certainly can be perceived to be bad, and certainly things that can be perceived to be ugly. So I'm going to go through this, and there are quite a few slides in this section which relate to what's happened in the last week. Okay, and so just bear with me, and hopefully it'll make sense. Okay, so the good, you may not be feeling any good at the moment. At the moment, you've potentially lost income, or closed, or your business is closed, your practice is closed, and there's a lot of stuff being thrown at you, and you're not sure what to do. But we are where we are. Okay. I guess the good in this instance, and I know certainly from my own perspective, I've had my children home all week. I've managed to spend a little bit more time with them when I'm not dealing with issues like this, helping my daughter with maths yesterday, my son with some physics earlier in the week. So it's nice to have them around, but I know the circumstances aren't really the ideal situation to do that. But it's how you perceive these things. So you've got to make the best out of a bad lot. The bad, I know for many clients, I know from my own experience with our own clinics, practices are closed, okay, 0 patients. My wife, Smita, was actually in tears earlier in the week saying, well, we worked so hard, we've trained so hard, we've built a wonderful team, etc. And now I'm not being able to do what we were educated and trained for. So yeah, it's upsetting. It's terrible. There's no income, and really, most importantly, we're in a zone of never being here before. None of us have. I've never certainly been in it, not in my lifetime, and I'm sure most people on this call haven't either. So, really stressing the point is that there are bad times out there. Okay, and I guess this kind of slide, one of my clients sent to me yesterday on Facebook, and I guess this is the ugly. You may have seen this already. And the dentist is the me at the bottom. This is maybe how you're feeling at the moment with the coronavirus and CDO comments, the GDC, the Chancellor's kind of attack on self-employed, which wasn't very positive last night. All of these things are really kind of ugly, really quite ugly. Okay, so how do we get out of this? What are we going to do? Okay, and how do we change our mindset as well? And I'll come on to mindset a little bit later. So the current situation, virtually, as far as I'm aware, all practices are pretty much closed. And now most, if not all, will be reliant on the government for support in some shape or form. It's not a situation anyone wants to be in. And despite the considerable tsunami of news flow that has come out from the government and the Chancellor and the Treasury and Boris Johnson, etc., over the last week, from the financial perspective, it's still many unknowns. Okay, there are lots of unanswered questions, and we only know certain things at this stage. And we know, and I'll come on to areas a little bit later of what we do know and what we don't know. But so please take these comments, these advice, this information in a way that comes from what I've interpreted, what I've read, and I've read considerably on this topic over the last week. But there are things I just do not know. Okay, so, and hopefully more clarity will come over the coming days and weeks. Excuse me. So let's start with one of the ugly points. Okay, I know the letter came out from this is for the NHS practices in particular. The NHS, the CDO wrote a letter earlier in the week, and it kind of highlighted basically that there would be funding available for 1920, 2021. And this could then be used to pay staff, associates, etc. Okay, but from my reading and then talking to various clients, it seems to be contingent on availing yourself and your team to the NHS frontline, potentially to the Nightingale Hospital or another location. I've written the words, is this effective conscription? Maybe, and that's what one of my clients said to me. He said, it feels like conscription. There's no voluntary aspect to it. I'm just being forced to do this because I need to get the money for my business, okay? Plus also is, if you take this route and accept the funding and carry on as in the NHS, you cannot obtain any other government assistance if you take this option. So it sounds like you wouldn't be able to get any of the grants. Obviously, if you're continuing your practice, you wouldn't be able to furlough your staff. So there's things in this that make it unclear. And I know clients of mine have said that their team aren't very happy about having to go on the front line as well. So what happens in that situation? Now, I understand the BDA have written back to NHS England, the CDO, with a vast list of questions to gain clarity. When we get answers for that, I'm not too sure. So it's a pretty dire situation. Another question I had from another client this morning who I spoke to, he was saying that, well, okay, if I take this funding, does that mean I have to pay my associates for their NHS and their private bit? Because obviously the private bit varies month by month. It's unclear, okay? And do I pay my staff, since my practice is 50-50, half NHS, half private, do I just pay the staff 50% of their salary? No idea, okay? This is where perhaps you can write a nice thing on a nice letter, setting it out, but the true reality of having to implement it hasn't really been thought through at all. Okay, so let's go back a minute. So what can you do, okay, in this situation, for people in this situation? You can either potentially take the money and carry on and hopefully meet your targets for this year. That will then roll over for next year. And then get involved in the COVID-19 kind of requirement, okay? That's one option, which is certainly the option that I guess the government want you to do and the NHS England want you to do. The other option is to potentially say no, okay? And if you do, it sounds like, if you read between the lines, it's saying goodbye to any future NHS funding, which for most people isn't probably the right scenario, okay? But there's an option there, okay? For those of you who might be who have a small NHS contract, you might think, you know what, that's not for me. I never wanted that in the first place. Maybe I can just work it out and step away at this time. Again, no clarity. If you do decide to go down that route, you could look at funding the difference with alternative financing arrangements, and then ultimately furloughing your staff as well, or getting a loan as well. So what do you have to do in this situation if you did decide to exit or say, you know what, it's not for me? I guess it's ultimately how much cash you will need, okay? How much cash you'll need to get through this time of whilst we're down. Now, the question is, no one knows how long this is going to go on for. Is it going to be 2 months, 3 months? Is it going to be 2 months, 6 months? I don't know, okay? So this is something that has to be considered in the whole mix of things. So it's a pretty ugly situation for the NHS practices, for those of the people who weren't expecting that I suppose it's contingent on them availing themselves for the NHS front line, especially as we know that the PPE and all these types of things, we're not clear whether it's available or not. I suppose on the private side, I'd say it's goodish. I'm not saying it's good, okay? People who have private practices who have zero NHS commitment, there's a coronavirus job retention scheme. So effectively you can furlough your staff members backdated from the 1st of March. So let's say you closed earlier this week, you closed it, you've told your staff and you're saying you're furloughing them, they can then achieve a payroll of up to eight, excuse me, it's my dog, so things never run smoothly. They can achieve up to 80% of their salary, subject to a maximum of £2,500, plus the associated NIC, national insurance charge, will have to be paid as well. So a couple of things that I've read earlier, they have to be on the payroll at the end of Feb, and be able to pay you, they have to apply via a portal which is yet to be built. So we're waiting on that. But this at least manages you to retain your staff during this downtime. They've said it's for initial 3 months. If it goes beyond this, I imagine it'll extend to a longer period as well, but maybe on different terms. So that's kind of on the private side. Let's keep going. But then last night was another ugly announcement. The self-employed income support scheme. Now, what this is, it provides a grant of £2,500 per month, or 80% of someone's profits. It's for self-employed. So I know, or a member of a partnership know, a large number of our clients are self-employed, but I'd say a large majority of self-employed, and they have lost, and if they've lost profits due to COVID-19, they must have filed a tax return for 18, 19. And if they haven't done it already, you've got 4 weeks to do that, okay? And they must have traded during the 1920 period as well, okay? But this is where I suppose the real sting in the tail is, you must have had trading profits less than 50,000, okay? And more than half of your income must have come from self-employment, and your trading profits, they use the reference point of whether your trading profits are less than 50,000 for 2018, 19, or they'll go back for the last 3 years and do an average for those 3 years. Now, there's nothing actually to do here. If you qualify based on the tax returns that you have submitted, HMRC will contact you. But the real issue is payment has to be by early June. Well, payment will be by early June. So this means you've got, where are we now? We're April, May, at least 2.5 months until you probably receive any money. So not a short amount of time if you've got people to feed in your house, you've got children to feed, all these types of things, other outgoings. So this is where it can come unstuck, okay? Some dentists will qualify, but many won't. So I know, for instance, that the average earnings of a dentist is 69,000. So if you're earning in excess of £69,000, what will happen? What will you get? Well, from what my reading is, you're not going to get anything. Okay, so I think the Chancellor was saying, well, this new system is covering 95% of people, but the truth is, I don't think it really is. He said, avail yourself of other ways of getting money, i.e. the business loan, COVID business interruption loan, or perhaps universal credit. That's another thing. Okay, I'm going to just answer one question I've just quickly had from one person that's come through. It's asking, for NHS practices that accept to carry on, what happens if staff members refuse to make themselves available for volunteering? Do they not get paid at all, or can they be furloughed and go on the job retention scheme and get 80%? Good question. I don't really know. Okay, the answer at the moment is they're expecting all people to be getting involved in the practice, but until we have clarity what happens in that situation, I think we'll have to wait for further guidance. So let's move on. One of the positives that came out earlier in the week was that there's the deferral of self-assessment payments. So any payment that anyone had to make by July this year can now be deferred until January 2021, which is good, helps from a cash flow perspective. But remember, this may only help short term, because ultimately in January, you're going to have to pay the July payment as well as your payment in January. So a bigger lump sum at that time. So it's good for cash flow now, but don't forget, you're going to have an extra large payment later in, early next year at the end of Jan. Okay. One of the other things that's been mentioned is the coronavirus business loans. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I've got a whole load of questions coming through, which I will answer in due course when I finish this first section. Just bear with me 1 second. Let's close my door. I've got my daughter's got her music lesson as we speak on Zoom with her music teacher. So it's all crazy in my house, but hopefully we can get this all done. Okay. So let's get this done. So loans up to, on this slide, this is the coronavirus business interruption loan. Okay. We've got loans up to 5 million, loans up to 5 million with the are available, with the government guaranteeing the lender for each loan. There are about 40 lenders from what I understand, and in order to do this, you have to apply via your own bank. It's first port of call. If they're not helpful, then you can potentially contact other banks. You will need a business plan, cash flow forecast, potentially a continuity plan. We've got all of these free templates on our blog page if you want to use those as a basic template. However, I've spoken to banks literally today and yesterday, and they're inundated. Okay, so the reality of actually getting this money quickly is pretty unlikely. They say the government talk a good story, but the actual reality is that the banks aren't set up they haven't got enough resourcing. They've made people redundant. There's no one there to actually do these things. So there's only a certain number of hours a day and a certain number of personnel that they've got. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I suppose that's the good news. There's a loan available that you can access, albeit it might take some time. Okay. Another thing is the statutory sick pay rebate. This is available for any staff that have gone on sick with COVID-19. It will cover 2 weeks of SSP per eligible employee, which is good. Okay, so, but you need to claim that and it's automatically given to you. Another situation, I've spoken to another client this morning, is that they're actually a private owner, have a loss of income, or with no patients coming through, so no income coming through. They're getting to furlough their staff, but their business is that they were directors, they were being paid as dividends, so their actual salary was very low. So they're not getting anything, not really being helped in this instance. That's another negative combination out there. A positive cash grants of about 10 grand is available to your business if you're receiving small business rate relief, particularly relevant for anyone running a private practice. This is coming through local authorities. So there's a mix of things out here. I'm just painting different scenarios of things out there. And I've got, I think, a whole raft of questions. And if you haven't applied for a mortgage loan yet, or mortgage holiday or a loan holiday, make sure you do contact your bank, contact your mortgage provider. Bank loans they're allowing that for 3 or even 6 months. Asset finance providers are doing this on a case-by-case basis. And then interest will ultimately be added to the end of the loan. So, and it won't affect your credit history, I believe. It's just a payment holiday, which I think the government have asked the banks to deal with. Okay, so let me go to these questions, okay, that I've just got here. I'm just going to go through these. So one question is, if you earn money from rental income, is that also part of the 50k profit limit? Yes. Okay. So what they're saying, it's trading profits that's available. Okay, trading profits. So and the majority of income has to have come from trading profits. If it's to do with rental income, well, that's not really relevant here. They're only interested in trading profits. So they're not going to give any compensation for rental income at all. Okay. In terms of, if we have 40% of revenue is private, can we make 40% of the staff redundant? That's an employment HR question, and that goes back to the term of furloughing. Okay. And I guess you can choose who you make redundant, you can choose who you make furlough, and you just have to follow the HR employment rules around that. Difficult one to give a definitive answer on that respect. Okay. Other questions on goodwill values. What are they like at present? It's too early to say. Okay, way too early to say. I know people who are still working through deals and they'll go through and they'll happen. Okay, so it's too early to say. I think if it's just a 3 or 4 month period, this hiatus happens. I think, and it's over. I think the goodwill values will pretty much stay the same as they were, but I don't have a crystal ball in that respect. So let's carry on with a few more questions here. Hopefully I don't miss them. Any update on mixed practice? How can 50% NHO be used to fund 100% of the workforce? Yeah, good question. That's one of the questions the NHS or the BDA have gone back to. Okay, surely that NHS income should only be paying for 50% of the workforce or 50% of their salary. It's not clear. That's what we're waiting to hear from. Okay. I think the next question is very similar. What do I do if I have a small NHS contract and will barely cover staff wages, but staff wages? Yeah, again, I suppose it's about allocating what you have from the NHS contract to your staff members and to your associates. But then after that, it's down to you to cover the loan, interest, utilities and stuff. And that's like any other private practice, really. You're going to have to pay those costs. Those are overheads at the moment. Another question, is there any clarification on the start date of the employee? Someone read, as long as a formal offer was sent prior to the 28th of February, it still counted with a staff member starting on the 9th of March. Yeah, very good question. We have a very similar situation. I don't know. No one's really said anything about this yet. I know from the ICAW, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Wales, they're saying that the payroll, if they were on the payroll at the 28th of Feb, but we have to wait until we get further information now. Okay. I've got another 25 questions to go through, so there are lots of them here. So bear with me. I'm going to try my best to do this because I've got a load of other stuff to talk to in a minute. Okay. Some people are finding that the CBIL loan isn't working as you have equity. Yeah, that's if you've got assets in the background, they're going to pretty much say no to you. But then there's an option to raise equity from, get a loan maybe from another CBIL backed bank, okay, or alternatively find another type of source of funding of loan, okay. Does the business continuity loan count as duplicate funding for NHS payment? No, I don't believe so, okay. Lloyds are trying to push their own products with standard application criteria and their own timelines. Yeah, well, you can understand that these banks want to try and get something out of it, because remember, these CBIL loans, they ain't going to make any money out of it. So they're going to try and push their criteria. So that's why I'm saying these loans that the government have given, good in name and trying to be good from a PR point of view, but the reality is it's not that easy to get hold of, or the terms aren't as favorable as they keep making it out to be. Another question, if an employee is sick for COVID symptoms for longer than 2 weeks, who lays the sick pay thereafter? That will be you, okay, as the employer. That's the reality of the situation. I'm only going to give two weeks, nothing beyond that. The £10,000 grant, I guess what you're asking for, that basically is saying that's going to come through your local authority, so you have to wait to hear from them. What I suggest you do, though, is contact your local authority and look at what their website's saying. They may be doing something. If not, maybe give them a call today, later next week. That would be a good idea. If I draw my NHS pension, how will this affect the business? Well, that's going to be a difficult one to answer. One thing, there's a little bit of ambiguity around this about these grants that are available. There's two grants. There's one for small business rates grant, which is 10 grand, okay, and there's another grant which I think is between 10 and 25,000 pounds, which is for the retail and hospitality. If your business is claiming small business rate relief, you will get this grant for 10 grand, okay. There's nothing saying that's not, and what I'll do after this, I'll put on our blog post a link to the PDF from HMRC telling what does and what doesn't qualify. The other thing that's being asked is it SA 302 profits or profits before capital allowances. What will be, it basically means it's trading profits. It's nothing to do with the capital allowances. It's the actual trading profits of the business. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, the small business rates relief applies to Deferral. I believe it does. Okay, from my reading. So I can see all the questions. There's so many here. Yeah, so the small business rate relief applied to NHS practice who continue to receive NHS payments. Well, that's a very good question, because if you look at the reading on the letter that came from the CDO, they said if you're an NHS practice, you won't be able to qualify for further NHS, any further government support. So it's unlikely you'll be able to get the small business rate relief if you're carrying on in the NHS and getting your NHS income, okay? Let's wait and see. Okay, does the grant apply to NHS practices? Possibly not. If you're not paying, if you're not small business rate, if you're not claiming small business rate relief already, and I think for the NHS practices already, you might be getting some business rates relief anyway. You wouldn't necessarily get that. So I know there's loads of unanswered questions, as I mentioned right at the outset in this whole subject. I suppose for the local authority rates, contact your local authority. There are their websites will be updated. I've spoken to local authority people, and they don't even know necessarily what's going on, okay? Because there's differences between the retail and leisure and hospitality grants, and then the small business rate relief grants as well. So these questions are very hard to say, okay? One last question on this area. Any idea what the interest rates on the CBIL's loans will be? after the interest period. So for people who don't know this, the interest rate for the first 12 months will be 0%. Government will foot that. Then I imagine it will go back to some much more commercial rates of lending. So the banks won't commit to that now, but I imagine anything between a 3 and 6% rate, I imagine will probably be the most realistic based on current market rates that I'm seeing out there. Okay. And I think there seems to be a lot of questions about this mixed practice. Can you furlough part and can you not furlough the other part? If someone's private, I wish I had the answer. It doesn't seem clear at the moment. I'm going to get an employment person on this early next week to see if I can find out further information. But I know it's an area that we need further answers from, and maybe the BDA can help with that as well. Okay. Any other questions that are relevant on this section here? Okay. So if you don't have the small business rate relief entitlement, you won't get that relief. So you won't get the 10 grand in that instance. Okay. Right. Questions, and I'm failing to answer a lot of them because the answer is it's unknown. Okay, and I apologise for that. We'll try our best to find out all these questions and answers over the coming days and weeks. So let's move on to well, this is I imagine for many of you, including myself, we're all in a state of grief of some way. Maybe at the beginning we were in denial, then you were angry, bargaining, depressed, and now maybe you've reached acceptance, or you may be further back in the process of grief. Excuse me. Now, I suppose for me, to be personally honest, I've been through this process, and now I suppose I'm in the stages of acceptance, and we've just got to get on with it. Okay. Let's see. That's where we are. Okay. So let's move on. So what's next? Okay. What's next? I know you're thinking, oh Christ, I don't have all the answers to what I need to know now. Okay. But this is where your mindset will need to play a large part of this. There'll be answers you won't have for weeks, for days, for weeks, for even months, I imagine, that you won't know what to do and how to handle these situations. Okay. Now you can try and glean as much information from webinars like this, web pages, etc., or talk to support. But I think this is a moving target, and people are making decisions as things change. Okay. So there's a large mental game to be played here as well. So I'm going to go into a few separate different slides to think about your business, okay, rather than just these issues that have been thrown at you by the government, been thrown at you by the Chancellor, and been thrown at you by the CDO, etc. Because I think you're going to have to still deal with those situations, but you need to do it from a position of strength rather than from a position of kind of uncertainty and fear. So this slide just about I'm very touching on these subjects very briefly, is you've got to be able to lead your team in this situation, okay? And you're thinking, oh my God, how can I lead my team when I don't even know what's going on? I get that, okay? But two things you have to think about is, firstly, plan for what you can control, not what you can't. So in this midst and this cloud of crap, okay, this cloud of, oh my God, what's going on? Plan for what can you control, not what you can't. So things like the CDO's announcements, the NHS announcements, what the government's saying and what they're going to pay and what they're not going to pay, and the grants, you can't control any of that, okay? But you can plan about what you do have. And then you need to start managing and mastering emotions to what you cannot control. You need to choose how you react to the situation. Now you can choose and be in panic and fear and think, oh my God, the world is melting down. Or you can choose to say, you know what, step back and let's just hold on here, and let me just let the kind of mist clear and let me think about it. Because now remember, your team, you've got a team. If you have a practice, or you have even family, people around you, this isn't really just relevant for business. You have people around you, your team, your patients, even your family feed off your emotions. So if you're panicking and you're fearful, just send a message to them, because they'll be fearful and they'll be panicky, etc. Whereas if you have a message of hope, strength, positivity, that will send another type of message. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm in the depth of crisis here, I don't know what to do. but it's about reframing your mind as much as you can and trying, even in the depths of where you are in that cycle of grief, to see where is that opportunity for you. What can you do? Where is that glimmer of hope that you can attach yourself onto and do something about it and make some decisions about it. So this setback, which is it's not just a setback, it's a massive, huge setback for most people I know out there. You have to reframe it to think, okay, this is an opportunity to spring forward in a new way. What that new way is, I don't have the answers, only you do, but that will only come clear by thinking positively and trying to take some actions which are positive to get through this this minefield. And I suppose the last point here is this time now, and this is a crisis. We know this is, okay, is you have to take control of your emotions, okay, control them, as opposed to them trying to control you. And so there's loads of stuff you can read out there on stoicism and philosophy and all of these types of things. If you have to, go out and read them. There's lots of personal well-being books out there you could read as well. And I will be sending out an article which my colleague Chris has written around mindset a little bit later, around the stoic mindset, which you need in this time, because you need to step up and you need to lead your team, you need to lead your patients, you need to lead your family, okay? This is a very important aspect of this whole thing, because there's a whole load of jumble that's been thrown at you, whole load of uncertainty, your whole livelihood has been thrown up in the air. What you have to do is think, okay, what am I going to do to do this? And that starts with you leading your team. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, let's move on. So you might be thinking, oh, you have got downtime now. Okay, and obviously there's lots of questions. Your practice is closed. What am I going to do? Okay, and you might be thinking, well, it's the last thing I want to think about. I've got to worry about my NHS contract. I've got to worry about my staff. All of these things. Okay, if my staff don't want to be redeployed, these are things you're going to have to deal with now. Okay, and so from a staff deployment point of view and staff NHS issues, you're going to have to talk to your local area teams for the NHS. You need to talk to HR support people if you need anything. For tax issues, you need to talk to accountants like ourselves. Okay, for raising finance, you'll need to raise finance for yourselves if you need finance. Okay, if your banks aren't being supportive. But you also have to start thinking, you have to start planning, how am I going to get out of this stum, okay? Because this will end, okay? And where do I want to be? How do I want to be positioned? How do I want my business to be running at that time? So you've got to be able to look at your current workflows in your business, your clinical workflows. I know there's a lot online I'm reading about people saying do virtual consults. Maybe that's a solution. Maybe that's an opportunity to kind of engage in that virtual kind of world and do consults that way. I'm no expert. There's lots of people out there promoting and saying they can help. So have a look at that. Another area which I know we've drummed in a lot of our clients over the years, and it's now proving beneficial, is making sure your financial workflows are right. So by automating all your financial systems, they're slick, they're fast, they're up to date. Why? For situations like we're hitting here today, because I know clients of ours who have used this system, their accounts are pretty much up to date. They can send them to the bank to raise finance. They can send them to HMRC to get any tax deferments done as quickly as possible, or tax refunds done as soon as possible after the tax year end. Everything's streamlined. So this is an opportunity, if you haven't already, to start thinking, if I haven't, how can I streamline my business clinically, financially, business-wise, even marketing-wise as well? Okay, so further information on this is all on our website. I'm not going to dwell on it now, but if you need any help, ask, get in touch. We're here to help. The other aspect, and I think this is a really important aspect, is your existing patient base. Okay, you need to be communicating with them and cultivating them and liaising with them. They are your patients. You need to keep those patient relationships alive. Whether you're NHS or private, those patients are coming to you. Whether you have an NHS contract or not, after this event, they're still coming to you. They have that relationship with you. And patients aren't stupid. They remember who was there and who was not during these times. So I suppose it's really important to keep communicating in all media. If you're not that web savvy, or if you haven't got a website, or if you haven't got social media set up, think about what you're going to do there to communicate to patients. They want to be aware of you. At the same time, you need to think about emergencies. I know in my wife's practices, all calls are being diverted to an emergency number, which is answered, and people are responded to, giving advice on the telephone. And supporting them, making them feel that they're helped. Okay, they might not be able to do much clinically, but you can say that, okay, I think you can need some maybe antibiotics, and so you have a pharmacy on standby to help with the prescription, as example. And then at the same time, it's about having and sharing relevant content, knowledge, advice on websites, social media, so people feel that you're in contact with them, you're communicating with them. You can email them, call them, text them, basically be there for them. All those years of goodwill built up is not based on an NHS contract value. It's based on you working with your patients, building those relationships with those patients, make them feel that you're there to support them in these difficult times. By just kind of closing up shop and feeling, you know what, can't do much about it, you can, but that's down to you. And you have to add value by sharing knowledge and writing content and putting videos out there, all these types of things. And I'll come on to marketing in a minute. Okay. So that is add value and cultivate and communicate with your existing patients. I suppose this is exhaust all financial avenues. So this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is take the money where possible. Even if you don't agree how they're doing it, cash is king. So you need to make sure you're getting the cash in from different sources, whether it's from patients who owe you money, to whether it's the grant that may be available to, or whether it's a loan from CBIL or a different type of loan from a bank. Obviously, some is available. Some of you might not qualify, but try not to leave anything on the table. Now, what our blog is trying to do is trying to give as much information out there for you to interpret, but it's down to ultimately for you figuring out what you can get, what you can't get. But if we can help, we'll try and help you where possible. Make sure you get the government loans, mortgage holidays, grants, if possible, furlough your staff. Basically get what you can if you qualify. Okay, but there are other potential cash flow avenues to think about as well. Something that I know many people aren't even remotely thinking about at the moment, but maybe a little bit further down the line when the dust has settled a little bit, is maybe R&D tax credits, where you can apply for R&D tax credit from HMRC, which can provide a positive cash flow to your business. Get in touch if you need help, but basically that's telling you about what R&D kind of related work you do in your business, which you can qualify, and HMRC can give you a tax credit for that as well. So what I'm trying to highlight here is exhaust all financial avenues, and basically also make sure you're deferring any tax. Don't pay tax if you don't need to at this stage. Okay. Let's move on. I'll come back to these questions, some of these other questions that are coming through, and I'll come back to that shortly. Okay. Keeping the marketing engine alive. Yeah. This is something that I strongly believe in, and I always have, even when the downturn's there, is keeping that communication going. It kind of leads to your existing patients that I was talking about earlier, but you need to keep the demand going too for your business. Say you're running a private clinic, albeit you may not be open, you may not be able to do the treatment, but you want to keep the interest up there. Okay, people are out there on their laptops, on their phones, bored at home, thinking about their stuff. So you need to be able to make sure that you're aware, because at some point this close down will open up. It might be 2 or 3 months, it may be longer, it may be shorter, but you want to be able to make sure that there's pent up demand for your services when you get back to work. Okay, because you will get back to work. So that's a really important aspect. If you wait a period of time, if you close down, stop your marketing, shut up shop, it's going to take you at least 3 months to get that demand back up, and people have forgotten about you. So it's really important to think about, how can I build up my demand without greatly affecting my business, but whilst being smart and clever about it. So if you're doing pay-per-click advertising, and particularly I know private clinics are or have been, obviously you may want to slash that. I get that. Okay, great point. But you might want to keep some bits going, because the cost per click now will be rock bottom. Why? Because there's less competition. So you're not competing. Remember, pay-per-click is an auction. If it's an auction on Google, if there's no one else in the auction, you're going to get the cheapest price. So remember that. But now it's about thinking a different form of marketing is required at this stage. You're not seeing patients. People aren't going to necessarily pay for Invisalign or consults or anything at this stage. They're just shopping around, getting engaging interest, finding out who the experts are. So therefore, it's all about the content you're putting out there. You need to put good information out there, educate them, knowledge, ideas, suggestions, advice, and put this all on your website and all through your social media presence, okay? Really, really important to do that, okay? At the same time, if you haven't, plan for a new website. Now's the great time. It's quiet, okay? This downtime is a perfect time when you've kind of thought about marketing, getting things organized, and never had the time to do it. Now's the time to do it, to step back and plan for your marketing strategy. So a new website may be what you want to, maybe something you want to do, which will help you convert patients better. Video. Have you thought about video? Have you got a video YouTube channel? Have you got videos on Instagram? Maybe you need to be doing that. Mobile, is your website mobile friendly? Are your videos mobile friendly? Are they going out there? Are you planning for remarketing? Are you putting new content? What about your SEO strategy? All of these things, which you've probably put on the back burner, are now more important than ever, okay? Another thing is maybe look at your data. You might have a software of excellence. You might have a list of all your patients and who they are, maybe thinking what patterns are in there. Can I market in them? It's all about looking at the data and understanding what you can use them for. So it's a perfect time to sort your marketing out, okay? And plan now. Now's not the time to plan, to panic. It's to plan, okay? Because you're going to have to, okay? So you've got no choice. You can either sink, okay, or you do something about it, and something about it which is effective and helpful for you, your business, your team, your family, etc. Okay. So I really stress keeping this marketing engine alive, albeit in a very different shape and format to say prior to the closure of your practice. And then I suppose the last point is plan for the future. Okay, me thinking, oh my God, it's how can I plan for the future? I don't even know what's happening day on day. But that's not the point. You don't dwell on the now. You remember you cannot control many of the factors here, okay? But work on what you can control, not what you can't. Now remember, whilst things are tough and no one is expecting this situation, no one wants this situation, you have this time, this luxury of this time to plan for your future. It may involve your clinic. It may involve dentistry. It may involve completely something else. It may well do, but you have that luxury to do that. God forbid you staying well and healthy. That's so important. We're still living. We're still alive. It's not the time to fret or panic, but it's the time to look towards your future, okay, and planning your future and building your future for you, your families, okay? And look at the next 3 months, not as a crisis, but as an opportunity. And I know that's the hardest thing to do at this stage when you're thinking, oh my God, my ship is sinking, my life has turned upside down. I don't know what to do, okay? But I have to stress, that's the only way you're going to get through this, not wallowing in self-pity and doubt and fear and panic, but actually looking, okay, this is a problem. I get this. I understand it. What can I control? But what can I do to make things a little bit different and change and build my future for me and my family, okay? Whatever your situation is, okay? Whatever your situation. Life is certainly not what it was before, and it will certainly not be the same as we go forward. Therefore, we have to adapt to change, okay? And I know most people are change resistant, but now is the time to be adaptive and be ready for change, okay? And embrace it. Cool. So how can we help? Well, where can you get content? If this is a quick shot of our website. If you see here on there that says COVID-19 on the top in a white box, a red line around it, there's a ton of information we're putting on there on our cash flow management crisis. There's pro bono work that we're doing for clients. So if you need any help, we're doing things for free, certain things for free. Obviously, certain things we aren't, but have a look at that. The blog is updated literally day by day, and I usually send an email out at the end of the day. If you haven't signed up to an email on our database or on our system here, make sure you do. You can do that on our website as well. Where to get further information, as I mentioned, it's on this blog, okay, this blog post. And we also have an opportunity for, if people want to talk, and I know a lot of you have spoken to different team members in our place, for Issa, Nigel, Dan, myself, Nathan and others, but we've got slots available during the day that you can talk to different parties if you need any help. They're daily, and anyone is, it's not just for clients, it's for anyone who feels that they need some advice and help at these difficult times. Okay, so book a slot on our on our website, on our blog, and you can get a time then. Excuse me. For further help, for raising finance advice and support in particular, I know people are needing finance in particular. You can call Nigel or Dan. They're the experts in getting money for people. For general advice, just give us a bell on the phone number on there, 0207 100 8788. So the last message to share here is you got to keep calm, okay? And it's down to you, or that the end word is to say, keep calm and carry on, keep calm and panic, keep calm and get depressed, or keep calm and fight, okay? And the message I want to say is you got to fight here, okay? And the fight is to keep going, okay? Never give up. There will be times when you're doubting yourself. There'll be times when you're facing bigger problems and other problems, and NHS problems and CDO problems and money problems and financial problems and bank problems. And they are all problems. I'm not disputing that. They all are. But the whole point is this is a game of mental strength as well. And you've got to fight now. And this is the time to fight. Okay, so keep going. And we're here right by your side, myself, my wider team, the whole dental community, I think, is there to try and help each other. And if we can help in any way, even an iota, we'd be delighted to. We're here to try and help you. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to see if there are any other further questions I can help with. I know a lot of the questions I've answered was particularly around the NHS side of things, which is an area where we're waiting clarification, especially around people who want to be furloughed, who can't be furloughed, or if they're part-time, or if they're 50-50 mix. And this is an area that we're going to have to wait for clarity on, okay? But I suppose what I will do after this webinar, I will point you in the direction. Someone's asked me some questions about some positive thinking books and articles to read. I will do a post on that on the blog, and I'll share that with you for things to read, definitely in this downtime. Reading really feeds the mind, and I think that's a really important aspect in this as well, okay? So in summary, keep strong, keep positive, and thank you very much, guys. We're here to help. Cheers.